Hello, this is Raymond Mayfield, and I'm really glad to be with you today on this broadcast. Thank you for listening to my program. I want to tell you that I've got two sites, www.rmayfield.com and rmayfield.com. You can find all of my videos on those sites. I do have two counseling sites, counselorsofpeace.com and counselorsoftruth.com, and I'd be glad to hear from you if I can help you. I appreciate all of you that tune in on many of my outlets, and that's GodTube and YouTube and Twitter and Google Plus and Pinterest and Lincoln and LiveJournal and several more. I appreciate you listening. Today I want to talk to you about God's plagues. We know that during the time that Moses and Aaron had asked to let the people go, Pharaoh hardened his heart time and time again. He never would let them go, and I'm going to cover some of those plagues today. My message will deal with the plagues that actually happened on Egypt. And the reason those plagues continued was because Pharaoh would not let Israel go. He kept hardening his heart. The first invasion that was sent to Egypt was a tremendous amount of frogs. In Exodus 8:6, the land was covered with frogs. And Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and begged him, plead with God to take the frogs away, and then I will let the people go, in Exodus the 8th chapter and verse number 8. And God took the frog plague away, and they were piled up in great heaps, making a terrible stench throughout all the land. But when the frogs were gone, Pharaoh once again hardened his heart and would not let the people go, in verse number 15. The next plague that he sent was the plague of lice, in Exodus the 8th chapter, verse number 17. And suddenly lice infested the entire nation, covering the Egyptians and their animals, and their musicians tried to duplicate the same plague, but they failed this time. They had succeeded the last time when the frogs were there. They duplicated that, but on this time they were not able to duplicate the same miracle that had been performed by Moses and Pharaoh. After each one of these, once again Pharaoh hardened his heart. You would think after all these times that God would deal with him, that he would listen to God, but he kept on hardening his heart. The next plague was a swarm of flies in Exodus the 8th chapter and verse number 24. And Jehovah did as he said, so that there were a terrible swarm of flies throughout Egypt. Their homes and their ground was covered with them. But it will be different this time in the land of Goshen where the Israelites live. No flies will be there. God is going to make a distinction between Israel and between Egypt, and that's kind of like a distinction between God's people and the people that serve the devil. One of these days God is going to make a clear distinction between those that serve God and those who do not. Once again he pleaded with Moses and Aaron and asked him to take away the flies and talk to God, but Pharaoh hardened his heart again. The fifth plague was a cattle disease in Exodus 9th chapter and verse 6. All of Egypt's cattle began dying, but the Israelites' cattle were protected, and God kept his hand up on their livestock. And it's terrible, but once again Pharaoh does not want to listen to God whatsoever. He continues his rebellious state. In Exodus the 9th chapter, verse number 10 is the next plague. Boils afflicted the Pharaoh till all of the boils were on every one of those, and he still failed to listen. And every one of those that would come, and all of his magicians had boils, and all those all around him were smitten with boils, and what a terrible thing that must have been. And still Pharaoh hardened his heart. And the seventh plague was hail mingled with fire. They had a terrible, terrible windstorm in Exodus 9th chapter and verse number 24. Never in the history of Egypt had they ever had a storm like this. And once again, Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let his people go. I want to tell you what, God deals with us time and time again. He pleads with our heart, and He pleads with our heart to give our life to Jesus Christ. And many of us keep on sealing our heart. The Bible says in the last days that people would seal their heart and would seal their heart with a hot iron. They would have no conscience. I want to tell you, God's dealing with people that are listening to me today, and I want to encourage you today. If you're lost out there today and you're listening to me, turn your life over to Jesus Christ. He makes a difference in your life, and I thank you so much. And with all this message that I preached today, I want to tell you that I love you very much, and thank you for listening. This is Raymond Mayfield. I'll talk to you again very soon.